Hello friends, and welcome to the very first video on the Fiberology Dyeworks YouTube channel. My name is Kate. I am the dyer and knitter behind Fiberology Dyeworks, and our YouTube channel is a place where you can hang out with me. I will be doing traditional format knitting podcasts. I will be sharing studio vlogs, stash tours, all kinds of fun yarny content. So if you're into that, welcome and let's chat. Today we're going to be doing a traditional format knitting podcast, and I'm going to give you a quick overview of my making from 2024 before we get into my whips and my plans for 2025. In 2024, I had a couple of overall goals of things that I wanted to achieve with my making in the year. The first goal was that I wanted to work through some of my stash, in particular my fingering weight yarn, and make some layering pieces. I was thinking tank tops, t-shirts, and cardigans. I had several sweaters quantities of fingering weight yarn in my stash, but what I've discovered about myself is that a long-sleeved fingering weight garment is not something that I get a lot of use out of. If I want full sleeves, I typically want something warmer than a fingering weight garment. And so I decided to kind of pivot that stash to become more summer knits or layering pieces. So I am wearing one of the pieces that I knit last year. This is the Quotidian Tee. And this is a pattern by Carrie Knits. I knit this in Woolberry Fiber Co.'s Berry Sock yarn, which I believe is a BFL and nylon blend. And the colorway is a Quiet Winter's Night. I originally got a skein of this a couple of years ago they did like a December sock set box, and then they brought it back for pre-order, and I got 2 more skeins to knit a top with. I actually ended up using only 2 skeins to knit this, which is awesome, and I definitely want to knit it again. This is like the perfect knit t-shirt in my opinion. I love the set-in sleeves. I love the v-neck. It has this great twisted rib detail, which I think is just gorgeous. And there's tons of customization options written right into the pattern for sleeve length, for shaping and fit and body length. It's a perfect everyday t-shirt pattern, and I definitely want to knit myself a couple more. I'm thinking a striped one. I'm thinking one that's maybe longer, more like a tunic length. I have ideas. So I did knit this t-shirt. I also knit 4 tank tops last year in a variety of yarns. I'm not going to show you everything that I knit because I don't think that's a great use of our time. I also knit 3 cardigans. And I am going to show you one of them because this cardigan, it was actually a bucket list knit for me. It was something that was on my to knit list forever. I was afraid of it. I had to really like psych myself up to feel ready to knit it. And that is the Spark cardigan. This is a pattern by Andrea Mowry of Drea Renee Knits. And as you can see, it is an all over color work design. And this is a steeked sweater. So it's knit in the round, and then I cut it with scissors. After I knit a whole sweater, I cut it with scissors. And then I picked up and knit this comfy, cozy, gorgeous shawl collar. As you can see, I did not weave in the ends because who cares? It's the inside of a cardigan. And then it has a tie belt as well. And I am so proud of myself for making this. It came out just how I envisioned it. It is knit in worsted weight, and then, you know, color work, it's kind of double layered, so it is super warm and cozy, and I love it. The original pattern calls for the contrast color to be a spin cycle yarn so that it has a gradient. What I did is I used 3 colors for my contrast, and I did like a faux fade with it. All of the yarn in this sweater is from Red Door Fiber Studios on her classic worsted base. So it's 100% superwash merino. The top color, contrast color, this purple, is called Impressive Wingspan. The middle color, which is this variegate, is called One Hell of a High Lord. And then the bottom color, this kind of dark blue, is called Truth Teller. The gray, the main color, is called Thought for a Thought. And again, these are all from Red Door Fiber Studios. This is, as I said, superwash merino, 100% superwash merino, which is like not recommended for steeking. So I did reinforce the steek on a sewing machine. So you can see here, it is sewed down before I cut it, and this works great. It is totally secure. I have no concerns that it's going to come out apart, and I'm not even very good at sewing. So definitely it can be done if you are like me and you love superwash yarn because of the colors. And yeah, so this was a huge success for me. So that was my first main goal for the year, was cardigans and t-shirts and layering pieces, and that was definitely achieved. My second goal for the year was to knit colorwork socks, and I achieved this goal as well. About halfway through the year, I started really looking at colorwork sock patterns and trying to decide what socks I was gonna knit. And then Summer Lee of Summer Lee Design Co. started releasing her colorwork cuff club socks. And this is a pattern. It's almost like a sock recipe. So it's a base pattern, and then every month she releases an additional colorwork chart that you work just on the leg of the sock. And you basically like mix and match those colorwork charts and knit the same base pattern around those charts every month. And she released the first charts in August of 2024, and so it will run through July of 2025. And I personally cannot resist any kind of Year of Socks challenge. So of course I saw this and I said, I'm gonna knit every month. So I did so far. Obviously it's only January, so I've not knit all of them, but I do have socks from August through December. So this was the August chart. It had these lovely florals, and this yarn, this is a sock set from Long Dog Yarn. The colorway of the main color is called Talk It Through with the Crew, and then this pink was the contrast mini that came with it. I did add the pink at the toes also, because why not? Then for September, I knit these socks, which have this geometric motif on the leg, and then they're knit with stripes through the rest. And I knit this pair entirely of scraps. So everything is just a scrap. I do not know what all of the colors are or who they're from, because they were just in my scrap bin. But this was September. October, I knit these socks with this little apple motif. The main color here is from ZZ Textiles. This is the colorway Ohio. And then the green, I think, is a mini from Woolberry Fiber Co. And then the red is a mini of our yarn, Fiberology Dye Works, and that is our colorway Curry Paste. So this was October. November was this quilt inspired motif, and this came out a little bit lower contrast than I expected, but I still am really happy with it. Certainly not unhappy enough to rip it out and do it again with a different contrast color. The main color here is from Ruby and Roses. This was an exclusive colorway for the Love and Stitches membership, which I am a part of. She dyed this up for us at the beginning of last year, like February or March. And then the mini is from ZZ Textiles, and it's called Ballet Tights or Ballet Slippers, something like that. That's a little lovely light pink color. And then in December, I knit these festive socks with this little tree scape, snowflakes, and all of that. The main color here is from Long Dog Yarn. This is called Ribbon Candy. It's one of her Christmas colors. And then the blue is one of our colors. This is called Tree Town. And then the green is from Rebel Woolworks, who is no longer dyeing yarn. This was an old colorway of hers. I just had some scraps, and I believe it was called Sassenach. I think it's to do with Outlander, but I don't know anything about Outlander to pronounce it. So that's December. I knit in total 15 pairs of socks last year, which is pretty much on brand for me. I typically knit anywhere from 13 to 15 pairs of socks in a year. So I will be continuing with the Colorwork Cuff Club in 2025 as well. And I will show you my January socks when we get to the whips. My last goal from 2024 that I'm going to talk through was to make baby knits. We had a baby at the end of September 2024. So I wanted to knit some things for the baby, and I did. I'll show you a few of those things. I knit us, first off, I knit matching hats. So my husband and the baby and I all have matching hats. This obviously is the Beans hat, the littlest one, but they're all matching, and I used a yarn from Lichen and Lace. This is their worsted yarn. It's a very light worsted. It does knit up, I would say, almost more of at like a DK gauge. It is very lightweight, but it's a great hat. I was anticipating that we would wear this like when the baby was newborn. He just started to fit into this hat, and he's almost 4 months old. So it's a little bit bigger than I expected, but we're still getting plenty of use out of his and ours as well. And the other thing I'm going to show you is his blanket. So I always knit baby blankets for all the babies in our lives. And this is the first one that stayed in my house. This is a pattern called Star Bright. So it is a star. It's got all 5 points here. And this pattern was in a pattern booklet that I bought years ago. It's published by Plymouth Yarn, I think. And it's got all different blankets ranging from baby blankets, throw blankets, Afghans. I've knit several blankets out of there as gifts mostly. And this is the first one that I kept. So this was great. This is knit up in worsted weight yarn. This is our fiberology yarn, and the colorway is called To the People Who Look at the Stars and Wish. And it's just this creamy color with a whole bunch of different speckles layered on top. So obviously, also baby knits, there will be more coming in 2025 because the baby still needs knits, and he's going to keep growing and needing different size knits. So all the more reason to keep knitting. Okay, next up, let's talk whips. I have several whips that came with me into 2025, and I've actually already finished 2 of them. One was the December Colorwork Cuff Club socks. I actually did finish the second sock in January. The first one was done in December, but I did finish the second one in January. The other one that I have finished is my Anthology Throw blanket. This is a pattern by Helen Stewart of Curious Handmade, and this is a circular blanket. It has this like eyelet detail that builds into the increases, and then when you get to the end, there's this little bit of chevron lace, and then the bind off has that chevron shape as well. This still needs to be blocked, but you can kind of get a sense of what that chevron looks like. This pattern is written for mini skeins, scraps, whatever you want to do with it. I knit this in a Advent scrappy swap Advent that I did with my mom in 2023. So she put together 24 mini skeins for me that were all scraps from her knitting in that year. I used 23 of them in the blanket. The 24th one was white, and I just took that to keep as a scrap for color work. And I had more than enough yarn for the blanket as written. I think I knit actually 4 rows more than the pattern like counted out. I just added a little bit more onto the border to use up my last color of yarn. And I knit this first color, the red in the middle here, I knit on December 1st of 2023. Like I was gonna keep up with my Advent knitting. And then I put it down, and I didn't pick this back up until November of 2024. We did a whip wrap up make along in November of 2024 to kind of like clear our needles in the Love and Stitches membership. So I picked this back up, and as you can see, it's big, right? I knew it was gonna be big. It was not very portable. And so what I did is I kept this at the kitchen table, and I knit on this while I was pumping for the baby. So this is knit entirely during pump sessions from November through, I finished this earlier this week, so like mid-January. I am exclusively pumping, so I am pumping anywhere from 2 to 4 hours a day. So this is a really special blanket now because it's full of all of those memories and all of that time spent feeding the baby. So very proud of this. I'm very excited to block it. I need to kind of wait till I have a little bit of free floor space to get this really spread out and pinned and blocked. But it is done knitting. So those 2 are finished. I have 2 other whips that came with me from 2024 into 2025. The first one is for the baby. As I said, there will be baby knits. So this is the unruly project bag, sorry. This is the Cinna Baby pullover sweater, Cinna Baby sweater. This is a pattern by Rachel Remo, and she has a whole collection of sweater patterns in this stitch texture. I have knit the Cinnabar sweater for myself. It's an adult pullover shaped just like this. It's a raglan with this pearl ridge detailing. Then there's a circular yoke version, there's a cardigan version, and then there's a baby version. So this is knitting up in this gorgeous yarn from Madeline Tosh, and it's coming through very blue on the camera, but it is really a true teal. It is very blendy between green and blue and teal, and it is knitting up just absolutely beautiful. I made a mistake in knitting this. I'm knitting the 0 to 6 month size. However, I messed up my needles, and I knit this on size 8 for the neckline ribbing instead of, the pattern tells you to use size 8 needles for the body. So I used them for the neckline without realizing it, and then I just went and grabbed larger needles for the body. So this is coming out at a much, much larger gauge. So really, this realistically, like, my baby's kind of a peanut, and he's not gonna fit this probably until next fall. So I'm not in a huge rush to finish this. Obviously the body is done, but I had to get needles, double pointed needles for the sleeves. I didn't have them in the right size. So I put it on pause to go get those needles, and now that I have them, it's just not a priority because I know it's not gonna fit him for a while. But it will get done this year. And I will probably make something else as well because I still have this much in the first ball, which is plenty for the sleeves. So I have a whole extra skein that I haven't even wound up yet that I will probably do something, make a hat, or I don't know, something with that other skein. So that is whip number 1. And the other whip that came with me is also on pause for a different reason. And this is the Hot Dish Cardigan, which is a pattern by Lindsay Fowler of Larkspur Knits. I'm showing you inside out, so it looks like this. Sorry. The Hot Dish Cardigan is written to be knit with 2 strands of fingering yarn held together, so DK gauge with fingering yarn. What I have done is I am holding 1 strand of a bare yarn with 1 strand of colored yarn, and I am doing it in a color block. So I've got 5 chunky stripes going down the length of the sweater. The pattern's written for a main color with just a couple of contrast stripes kind of at the hem and the cuffs. But I am knitting this to dupe a sweater that a friend of mine has. It's a store-bought sweater, but it's the same kind of vibe. It's got the white and the colored marled together. It's got chunky stripes, and I love that sweater. So I found the Hot Dish Cardigan. I think it's gonna give me the same fit as her sweater, and I just picked some colors from my stash. So I'm using 5 colors. This top kind of raspberry red is called Fire Drake. This is from Red Door Fiber Studios. This blue is one of a kind dyed by us. This was a test skein for something. The brown is called Bear Buns. This is from Woolberry Fiber Co. The green is also from Woolberry Fiber Co. This is called Turtle Tush. And then this last color is also from us, and this was Phosphorus from our Elements Monthly Yarn Club from 2024. So I've knit the body, as you can see, and I've knit 1 sleeve. I just have to do the bind off. However, I have a sneaking suspicion that something went wrong with my math on the sleeve length, and I'm concerned that the sleeve is too short. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna block it, and I'm going to pick up and knit the button band, which obviously is not on here yet. This is gonna also be just the bare yarn doubled like I did for the hem and the sleeve cuff. Somewhere, sleeve cuff. So I'm gonna knit the I'm gonna block it so it gets to its full, whatever stretching it's gonna do, which it is gonna stretch. And then I'm gonna knit the button band so that it sits on my shoulders the way that it will when it's done. And then I'm gonna try it on and make a decision about the sleeve. I may need to rip the cuff back and add some length. If it's close, I might just add a couple more rows of ribbing to the cuff. But yeah, I have a suspicion that I'm gonna need to rip back and add some more length, which is fine, I can do that. I wanna try it on before I commit to doing that. So this, again, I just need to make some space in a cat-safe area to block this before I can proceed. But that I think will be done pretty soon, because I'll probably get that blocked this weekend and finish it in the next week or 2. So those are all of the whips that came with me into 2025. I do have a couple of projects that are hibernating, but I'm not even going to show you those until such a time as I pick them back up. I have also cast on 2 new whips already this year, so I will show you those. The first is the January socks for the Colorwork Cuff Club, and those socks feature a really cute scalloped colorwork section. Very kind of minimalist, but super, super cute. And as you can see, I'm currently working the heel flap here. So I'm knitting these as kind of shorty socks, not very much leg at all. The yarn I'm using, the cuff and main color are these beautiful, beautiful colors from Wool and Works out of Melbourne, Australia. And then I do also have a little bit of this white color. This is one of our colors. This is called Cauldron Blessed. It is a dyed color. It's not berry yarn. It is dyed actually very faintly blue, just to kind of cut back on the yellow beigey undertones in berry yarn and make it really a crisp white. So that is the very thin contrast layer between the cuff and main color. So that is that sock. Hoping to finish that by the end of January, which I think I can probably do since I am not working on my sweater very much right now. Plenty of time for the sock. And the other whip that I have started is my new kitchen table pumping project. Since I finished my anthology, I started another blanket, and this blanket I am knitting up at DK weight yarn, or DK weight, using fingering weight yarn. So similar to what I'm doing with my hot dish cardigan, I'm holding one strand of berry yarn and one strand of colored yarn. And the colored yarn that I'm using here is another Scrappy Advent that I got from a swap. This swap I did with the 11 Stitches membership, and my partner made me a beautiful fade for my Advent. Sorry, baby check. False alarm. He's just making noise. She made me this beautiful, beautiful 25 mini skein fade. So I've got the first two colors so far. You can see we've got this like olive green, and then it goes into this variegated that has almost the exact same olive green, plus some pinks and some blues. So this blanket will follow that fade. Next up, I've got some solid pink colors coming, and then it's gonna fade into more of more variegates, and then it's gonna transition to blues. It's gonna be so pretty, and I really wanted to make a DK weight blanket, something heavier than the anthology, that I can kind of really snuggle up with. So what I'm knitting this, I'm not really following a pattern. What I did is I cast on 3 stitches, and then I'm knitting in garter stitch back and forth, just straight knits. On the right side, I am increasing at the beginning and end of the row. So it's increasing out on both ends to make this triangle. I'm gonna keep doing this until the side of the triangle, so like this side here, is the width that I want the blanket to be. Once I do that, then I'm going to knit straight, but on a bias, so it'll keep the kind of diagonal lines and diagonal stripes, but I'll be increasing on one end and decreasing on the other end. The stitch count stays the same. And I'm gonna knit that up until I reach the length of blanket that I want. And then I will decrease on both ends to close up that last triangle section for the opposite corner. So this is my pumping project. I'm still pumping 4 times a day, so that's 2 hours a day. So plenty of knitting time on this, less whatever time I am consoling a sad baby who can't be held while I am pumping. So those are all of my whips. And we're back. You may notice a wardrobe change. I won't name names, but someone did spit up on my sweater. So that one's in the wash. I'm changed now. This is again my Spark cardigan that I made last year. And we're gonna talk about plans for 2025. So first up, knitting plans. I have a couple. So one goal that I have is to knit through some of the specialty fibers that I have in my stash. For example, I pulled a couple of them out. This is a skein from Coven. I'm sorry, a skein from Oink Pigments in the colorway Coven, or perhaps the base is called Coven. Anyway, the point is, this skein is a blend of 65% silk, 35% linen, and it is, how many yards? 460 yards in 100 grams. So it's a light fingering weight yarn. This is plenty of yardage to make like a lacy shawl. I bought this, Oink Pigments was at one of the fiber shows that we vended at last year. They were there as well. It may have been the Kentucky Sheep and Wool Festival. And she had a sample of this yarn dyed up, not just dyed up, but knit up. Obviously it was dyed. Knit up into a shawl. And I really liked that fabric, the way that it knit up, the way that it draped. So I want to knit this into a shawl this year. Another yarn that I have is this gorgeous skein. This is from Gypsy Mountain Fibers, and this is 50% camel and 50% silk. And it's also fingering weight, 437 yards. So again, enough for something. I'm thinking I might make this into a cowl, something, oh, it's so soft, so something that I would wear close to my skin, maybe mittens. I worry about it for mittens because it's not super washed, so it wouldn't be very easy to care for with mittens, but I definitely want to knit this up. It's so soft, again, so drapey. I have knit with yak and silk blends with merino though, so I've knit with like merino, yak, and silk. This is just camel and silk, and it's just so drapey, so soft. So I am excited to knit this up. I bought this from Gypsy Mountain Fibers at the Ann Arbor Fiber Expo that we vend at. We vend there in the spring and the fall, and I bought this from her there. So I definitely want to knit this up as well. And then I also have in my stash, I've been picking up some different non-superwash wools in some different breeds of sheep. And I do want to knit my first non-superwash sweater. So this is my first non-superwash sweater quantity. This is from Witchfire Fibers. I ordered this, let me take one of the skeins out and show you. I ordered this from a pre-order that she had in the fall of 2024. And this is the colorway Clove. So I have 5 skeins of this, which is plenty for a sweater for me. And this will be my first non-superwash garment. I have knit with mohair, held with a superwash wool. Mohair is non-superwash, but it's a little more forgiving, I think, of being washed. So I'm a little nervous because, you know, I have this baby wandering around spitting up on things. So I'll be careful with the sweater, but I do want to try knitting a garment in non-superwash and see how I feel about that. So this is non-superwash merino yarn. I know I have a couple of skeins upstairs of a non-superwash Cormo wool, maybe, that I have earmarked for a scarf, because I think that'll be really nice. It's bulky weight for a nice big cozy scarf. So those are some of my plans. The other big plan that I have is I want to knit a bunch of sweaters. Specifically, I want to knit a bunch of DK weight sweaters. I mentioned that I don't love a fingering weight long sleeve sweater. my favorite sweaters, and what most of my sweaters are a fingering weight yarn held with mohair. That's my favorite to wear. I love it. I love mohair. You will not see me stop carrying mohair, stop knitting with mohair. I just love it. I don't prefer it. I don't prefer Surrey. I prefer mohair. I think that it's got, it's just the luster, the softness just cannot be beat. So I love mohair. However, I am finding myself uncomfortable wearing any of my mohair garments. Now that I have the baby, I spend so much time carrying him around, snuggling with him, and I just worry about holding him next to something that fuzzy and having those mohair fibers, that halo, get into his nose, into his mouth, and breathe them in. It makes me really uncomfortable. I'm sure it's fine. I'm not sure it's fine. It might be fine, but I am not comfortable with it. So I'm not wearing my mohair sweaters right now, which means that I am kind of low on pullover sweaters. So I do have several sweater quantities of DK weight yarn. So I want to knit those up and kind of take care of that gap that I suddenly have in my wardrobe. I think I also might have one skein of worsted weight for a sweater, or one sweater quantity of worsted weight as well. So I'll probably knit that up also. I don't have patterns picked out for all of my sweater quantities. I have a couple. I do want to knit at least one of them as a drop shoulder. That's a construction that I've never knit before. I thought I didn't like drop shoulder sweaters, but over the last year or so, the last like 3 or 4 garments that I have purchased for myself have all been drop shoulder style. So it appears that I may be in my drop shoulder era. So I'd like to knit at least one drop shoulder sweater. Okay, so those are my main goals. I do have exactly one pattern and yarn already for sure picked out in my queue for 2025. And that is this yarn. So this is a mini set, kind of a gradient here. And then I have 3 skeins of this. All of this yarn is from Explorer Knits and Fibers. These skeins are To the Stars Who Listen. And then this mini set, this is the Cool palette from the Monochrome collection. They offered last year, sometime like January, February last year. So I bought these with the intention. This is all on the Denali sock base, which is merino and nylon, superwash merino and nylon, with the intention of knitting the Laurel sweater. This is a sweater. I'll see if I can figure out how to put a picture in, somewhere. But what it is a colorwork sweater. I think it's a raglan construction, and it's got sort of bands of colorwork, stripes of colorwork, if you will, of a vine motif. So kind of like a vine, a vine, a vine, and then sections in between where it's just the main color. So my intention is, this is obviously the main color, and then each band of the colorwork will be a different one of these minis as the contrast. And then I'm going to modify it. We talked about how I feel about fingering weight garments, so I'm going to modify it to have short sleeves to be a t-shirt style. So the colorwork will only go down basically the body because the sleeves will be short. But that is something that I for sure want to make time for this year. Probably I will knit this in the spring so that I have it ready to go for the warmer weather. And then obviously I'll be doing some baby knits. I don't have a ton of plans, but I do have some yarn upstairs earmarked for him. Nope, we're good. We're good, he's back asleep. I don't know what that was. I do have some yarn earmarked for some things for him, but again, I don't really have a ton of patterns picked out. So I will share those with you as they come. So that's my knitting plans. And then obviously finishing with the Color Work Off Club. We talked about that. For the studio, we have a few things in the works. We are launching our next collection next week, January 31st. We are launching the Spirit Island collection. Spirit Island is a board game. If you have not played it, I highly recommend it. It is a cooperative game, and it is so fun. And there's lots of expansion packs. It's so replayable. It's just a top tier game in my opinion. And the artwork is gorgeous. So our new collection is inspired by the art of that game. And this collection has been ready since last summer. I was originally going to launch it last September, and then ended up, baby came early, so maternity leave came early, so we never actually launched it. We did do a soft launch. We had some of the, or all of the colors available in limited quantities, basically my samples that I had dyed up. We did bring to the Fall Fiber Expo. So some of you, if you were at the Fall Fiber Expo in Ann Arbor, you will have seen these colors, but they haven't been available to everyone. They haven't been available dyed to order online. So that will be launching next Friday. And that is also when we are going to reopen the full website. So all of our dyed to order colors will be available again at that time. All of our in-stock skeins, so our lab tests, our discounts, things like that, will all return to the website and be available to order. So that again is next Friday, January 31st. We will also be launching some new colors in, I'm thinking March, probably, for the Spring Fiber Expo, which is the last weekend in March. We will be re-releasing all 9 of the colors from the Elements Club last year. 9 because we only went January through September, because I was on maternity leave, October, November, December. But I will be adding 3 more colors that I had originally planned. Like I planned the whole year out in January before I knew that I was going to have a maternity leave. So I do have those ideas, and I will be releasing all 12 colors to our dyed to order library, and we'll have them in stock for this festival season, beginning with Fiber Expo in March. So that'll be coming up in a couple of months, and then we'll see what the rest of the year takes us. I'm not doing a monthly club this year, but I am hoping to get probably 2 more new collections. So we'll have Spirit Island and Elements, which are sort of new, and then we'll have 2 brand new collections in the second half of the year, probably July or August, and then November or December for those other 2 collections. We also have our busiest festival season of the year. We just kind of put together our schedule this week. So we have a whole bunch of shows coming up. A few of them we are still waiting to hear back if we have spots, but we're going to be in at least 6 shows, which is very exciting, throughout the Midwest. So we hope to see you there. I will be sharing those dates as we get confirmations, because I don't want to tell you that we're going to be somewhere and then it falls through. So, but we are confirmed for several, so I'm very excited about getting our yarn out into more shows so people can squish it and we can hang out and talk yarn. It's so fun. So yeah, that is the loose plan for the year in the studio. Last thing is this channel. As I said, we are brand new. You've probably noticed that there are no other videos, unless you're finding this later, in which case, welcome. So my plans right now are to post 2 videos per month. One of them will be kind of like this one, a traditional format podcast. I'll go over my whips, things that have been finished, things that have been started, any new yarn that I have, updates like that. And then a second video each month will be something different. So a studio vlog, a stash tour, pattern showcase, Maybe we'll talk through a new collection that might be coming up. We'll talk about a show that's coming up. Could be anything. But again, that'll be one a month plus one podcast a month. And that's the plan as of right now. And I'm definitely open to changing it as we go through and we see what we're into. If you have any suggestions, things that you would like to see me do a video on, go ahead and drop those down below in the comments. Also down below in the video description box, you'll find a link to the podcast notes. This is a Google Doc where I link everything that I talked about in the episode. So patterns, designers, dyers, events, our contact information and website will be linked there as well. So if there's anything that you have a question on, you can go check out those podcast notes. And if there's something that's missing from there, just leave a comment, let me know, ask away, and I will get back to you. So that about wraps us up for today. I will be back with another podcast next month. And our next video this month will be a showcase of our Spirit Island collection. That'll be coming out next week once all of the colors have been revealed. If you don't already follow us on social media, go ahead and check us out. We are on Instagram. We are not on Facebook, but we are on Instagram. And then of course you can subscribe here on YouTube, and I will see you next week. Bye.